Today I am going to go over doing a video for the Hornet, and it is going to be a baseball preview. So one of the first things, once you open up Premiere Pro, I always I import the Hornet intro as well as the lower thirds, and this is my interviews. And the way you do that is you go to File, Import, and there's also shortcut keys. But I also need to bring in all this B-roll that I have. Make sure that's the only ones. Just a couple more. So the first thing I do when it comes to videos is I figure out my interview, because that's going to be your baseline for the most part, depending on how you do your videos. I like to have the interview playing the whole time, so you can double click it and it opens up in this little preview window, in the source window, and I actually already have right here. I've listened to the whole thing, and the way you do it actually is to have the starting point is the letter I for indigo, which stands for end. That is your end point. Where I want it to stop, I press O, like Oscar, and that is for your out point. So once you've done that, you can click and drag it over. But what I always like to do first, just for setting the parameters of the video, I drag in the Hornet intro first. Now, since I have the in and the out point on the interview, I will click, hold it, and drop it over. Make sure not to drop it on top of audio that's already there, because it will cut it off. You can fix it, but it's always best not to. So I'm moving this to where I want, and you press the space bar to play.
I think that there's, we had our season cut short. We had our season.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually just start it right here. So there's two ways to do that. The easiest way, when it's on the end, you see that little red line, you click, and I drag it over to say I want it to actually start right there. Or you can use this razor blade tool, and it will go right where the timeline is. Click it, click the arrow, click delete, and then you can click this open space, click delete, and it'll pull the interview over. Next, what I want to do is actually only take out what the coach is saying that I'm going to use for the video. Otherwise, it's 1 minute and 44 seconds with just one person. And we like to keep our videos about 1 minute 30, 2 minute max. And again, it's all situational. But for something like this, 1 minute 30, minute 45 probably would be the most that I'd want to do. So I need to go through here and chop that up. We've dragged and dropped the interview, at least the first one that we want to use, into the timeline. I need to go through it and reduce the time. So I found a spot at 36 seconds. So I'm just going to use the razor blade tool, and I'm going to give it a little buffer. Go back to the arrow, click what I don't want, delete it. Now I need to do the next interview, some of the other players. So that's what I will do next. I'm going to go through and find my next interviews that I'm going to use as the baseline audio. Again, I do that first, so that way I know how much B-roll I need, and I can try to have B-roll as much as possible that coincides with what they're saying. So I already sent the in point. This is my out point, so I press O. And then I'm going to drag and drop that, but I do know there's a spot in here where he repeats himself, so I am going to take that out.
Roommates and stuff like that.
So what you may want to do is, if you make this smaller, you can make your peaks bigger. You can see where words start and stop.
Like my roommates and stuff like that. So just like.
Okay, so I want to cut it right there. And you can use the arrow key just to go over a little bit. So I'm going to use the razor blade.
Like that. So just like being able to like remove myself and put myself in like a school mindset has probably been the hardest. And then for like a base.
And then I want to get the baseball portion. So I'm going to get rid of this middle section. Go arrow, delete that. Bring those two pieces together.
And stuff. And then for like roommates and stuff.
Okay, I don't need him to say stuff.
Like my roommates and stuff. It's like my roommates.
There we go. So it's always good to listen after you've made your cut to see if you've cut too much or not enough, to make any adjustments that you need. Okay, now that we have the interviews in place, what I usually do will go through and take out the ums to save time. I've already done quite a few, but there's one right here to show you how. So I see where it's at. I go here. I'm gonna use the arrow key to get in between to make sure I'm not cutting on in the middle of a word. Use my arrow key, select it, select delete, select the open area, delete, and it moves everything over. Okay, looks like all our video. Okay, so this one needs to be sized. So you select it, effects control, the slider right here on scale, slide it to the right till it fills the screen. It looks like it's 152. So I'll just select that, type 152, so they're all the same size. You have to select each of the clips because I've already cut out the ums. That's why there's so many small pieces. Next, what I would do is I would look for B-roll. Now, there's many different ways to do videos, and feel free to show your style. My style, I like to have B-roll playing while I'm doing my voiceover to introduce to the viewers what they are watching. So I have this, and I will strip the audio. So I'm going to start there.
And it's going to be coming across the midfield right now. See it?
And I'm going to go there. So what I will do is move everything over because this is going to be where the voiceover is. Then delete it. I may have to add more. What I'm actually going to do is if I go to clip, unlink them because I actually want to delete the video, or the other way to do it is I can just pull this volume for that down and then you won't hear it. So that fixes that. Now I want to find B-roll to play over these guys. But before I do that, I always like to do the lower thirds and have it on top. Okay, one good thing to do when you're editing, you're going to click on the program window, go to view, show guides. So this is going to show your safe margins. And if it doesn't show that, you go to guide templates, and I clicked on safe margins. So I'm going to click on the lower thirds, double click it here, and then I am going to move it so it's not on his face. There we go. And then click off of it. You can click on this little text box. Make sure you're on the lower thirds. Click. First thing you want to do is change this to Tahoma Bold. That is the text that we use at the Hornet. I've found 450 to work well. I'm going to go to the roster to make sure that I spell his name correctly. So it's Stone Chirby. One thing I've found to help me, I like to write everything that I'm going to put into my Premiere video in a Google Doc, because Premiere does not have spell check. So everything needs to be in caps. So you can go to format, text, capitalization, uppercase. So I'm going to copy that, paste it, go to the next line, and I like 30. I feel like that fits well. And let's see, he is a senior right-handed pitcher. Let me go back to my document. Senior right-handed pitcher. Let's capitalize everything, or I could have just typed everything in caps. Paste it. Sometimes you need to move it because you see this is too low, so I like to have it even. And that looks good. And then just line these up so that way they play at the same time. Let me find where Matthew is. Okay, so it's there. So I'll bring the lower thirds onto his and do the same exact thing. Okay, now that we have done the lower thirds with a name and what they do or their title for all three of them, we're going to start adding B-roll. So on Stone, and I've gone through and marked where I want to grab some B-roll. Let's see which one we want to use. This one I know I want to use on Matthew because that is Matthew. So I will grab that and maybe put it there. Okay, this is at the end of the practice when the coach is speaking, so I'll grab that and put it where coach is. That's what I wanted to start off with. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we got.
The thing that like makes it harder too, it's like hard to remove yourself and like maybe study somewhere else where like if things were normal, like I could leave the house and like go to the library.
Okay, first of all, when you have B-roll playing on top of an interview, you have to lower the B-roll. I still like to have a little bit of the ambient noise, so there's never one sweet spot. You have to listen and figure out where that is, where you can still hear the noise, but it doesn't overpower the interview.
Or go to the arc or something. So I think like the biggest,
I can't hear it at all. Let's try there.
like the hardest thing for school for me. So
Yeah, like that. So let's try that. It looks about 18. I'm just grabbing this middle line, and that's the audio.
so far has been like able to be in the house and like be in my room and like kind of like lock it in for school instead of maybe like hanging around with like my roommates. And then for like a baseball standpoint, like honestly the preparation hasn't gotten any different. I think it honestly the preparation hasn't gotten any different. I think it's been more like on our own. Like a lot of our preparation has like kind of fallen on us individually. And I think like the maturity throughout our team, like that hasn't been a problem for us at all because everybody cares and everybody wants to get better.
With school and the pandemic, it's really hard. You have a lot more free time in the sense of some of your classes or anything.
Okay, now that I have adjusted the levels of the B-roll audio, I'm going to add the voiceover, And I'm gonna start with the intro. I've already done my in and out for where I want the intro to be. And I want this to match up just so there's noise, and let's see what that looks like. It's been 9 months since the baseball team has been on the field all together after last season was cut short. The team has taken a new approach to preparation due to the pandemic.
Your school.
And then I will do the outro. Actually, we have one in between. So the same thing, and it's actually before coach talks. So I'm just going to move everything over. Drag this here. So I need to find B-roll to go over this middle voiceover. I'm actually going to grab this and move this over. And I'll use something else for the outro. And I'm going to actually make some keyframes because I want this audio to play for a little bit. So right about here, and the way you can do that, you hold down Command, and you see it makes a little X. I can do a keyframe there. And then what I'm going to do is just grab and pull that down. Coach Christensen talks about how not low enough. Let's move this so it's a little more gradual. Coach Christensen talks about how returning to the diamond is important for these athletes' mental health. You want to make sure over here in the levels that it doesn't go into the red. So I'm just bringing this down a little bit. Coach Christensen talks about how returning to the diamond is important for these athletes' mental health.
We had our season cut.
Okay. We've done voiceovers and made sure we had B-roll to go over it. At the end of the video, you can go to the text, click on here, and you're going to type video and reporting by and whoever it is. And it can be a lot of different names. Someone could have done the video, someone could have done the reporting, and you could have done the editing. You just need to make sure that you are giving credit to whoever did that. I like to have everything centered. Make sure it's not too large because it doesn't need to be huge on the screen. And this is automatically going to be 5 seconds. For something this short, it doesn't need to be up there that long. Usually I'll do like maybe 3 seconds. So I'm going to shave 2 seconds off here. Next step is adding transitions. What I like to do, I like to bring all my visuals into one line. I've already done it over here. So I'm going to grab these two and just drag it down, and what it does is it just goes in, it's going to play in place of the interview, as you'll see.
You know, we played 16 games, and I think there's, you know, a lot of
So what I can do is select everything. My dissolve is my default, so I can do Command D. And it puts the dissolve in place. Now the length, first of all, I don't like to dissolve in the beginning, but the length is always just a little too long, so I actually changed that to 5, and I'm going to copy that. And I click on these, and I am going to go through and change the rest of these to a shorter dissolve. And let me show you what that will look like. To preparation due to the pandemic.
Your school.
It's barely noticeable, but it just makes for a smoother transition. So after I've done the video transitions to all of them and I adjusted the length, what I'm going to do is do audio transitions, because when you're cutting up audio, a lot of times there will be a pop. So this just smooths out the transition between audio tracks. So we started in project. You go to these arrows and you go to effects. Over here, audio transition, crossfade, constant power. So you will drag and drop. I like them to be in between. And this is going to be too long. If the transition is too long, sometimes it will blend the audio tracks and it will sound funny. So again, I like this length. I feel like it's good. And I will do that to all of them, but it is very important to listen to it to make sure that the audio is not overlapping.
Around with like my roommates, and then for like a bass.
And it sounds good. To make sure that you know where the effects are, like the video transitions, you go, if you're starting the project, you go to the arrow, go to effects, video transitions, dissolve, cross dissolve is what I use. And with audio transitions, crossfade, constant power. So I've done the video transitions through everything as well as the audio. Next, what you want to do is I usually listen to it 2 more times. The first time I'm listening to make sure the audio transitions sound clean, that the audio is not overlapping. And the second time I'll watch it to watch this right here, the audio levels. I normally like to try to keep them in between 12 and 6. You do not want them to go into red. You want to make sure that your levels are consistent throughout the video because you don't want some spots really low and some spots really loud. So let's take a listen. It's been 9 months since the baseball team has been on the field. And I can raise those levels just a little bit. Let's see what that does. Let's go to 6. And again, this is just trial and error. You can just test it out. It's been 9 months since... I'm going to go a little louder. Together after last season was cut short. The team has taken a new approach to preparation due to the pandemic.
Your school, the thing that like makes it harder too, it's
so you see the levels are pretty consistent through me talking, through him talking. I didn't hear any pops or the audio overlapping, but I will listen to it throughout the whole video just to make sure. And if everything looks good, I will export it. So I've gone through twice and make sure that I liked my levels and made sure the audio sounded clean. One thing that I need to make sure that everyone does is as you are working on this, always do save as. Even though it does an auto save, I still do a save as to make sure that if for whatever reason the program stops working, that I have my progress saved. So I'm ready to export. So I go to export media. You're going to name it So I'm just changing the name and I go to high quality 720 because that is the easiest to download to a phone, to upload to social, and export. And this will take a while usually to do, and then it needs to be uploaded to the Google Drive.